One thing a lot of people might be wondering now that we're heading straight into the next Great Depression is there anything you can actually do about it? You know, for yourself, for your family, for your finances. You know, a lot of people complain, Michael, where's the good news? Give us some advice, tell us what to do. Well, I don't like telling people what to do because everybody's situation is different, and also I'm not a financial advisor. But in today's video, I am going to go over some things that I think everybody should be doing right now to prepare for this disaster that has already began. And, you know, people like me, I've been preparing for this from years ago, guys, back when things were still good, because I knew that at some point in the future, it wouldn't be good again. And I think that's something that a lot of millennials my age just kind of picked up, because we had to go through and see the great financial crisis and the big recession in 2008. We saw how much it took a toll on our families and people that we knew and people's 401k accounts and things like that. And we were pretty young at the time, in their early 20s back then, and seeing this all unfold in real time, that was enough for me anyways to realize, you know what, I don't want to become a statistic like so many other people have during this problem. So let me, you know, get my life straightened out to the point where I don't have to worry about this stuff. So I want to share a lot of these things with you guys, and a lot of it's very simple stuff that you can do. But everything we've seen recently points to the fact that we are definitely in a recession and have been in one for a while, and maybe heading into a depression. So it's going to pay off to be ready for it versus someone who isn't. And this is not a unique situation either, by the way. In fact, the US has experienced 34 recessions since 1857, and the average recession lasts about 17 months, which isn't that long. But it's long enough to really bring your finances down to a level that you never thought was possible if you're not prepared. And really, the one common theme through all of this is making sure you have enough money, guys. So if you're someone that's loaded, obviously this doesn't apply to you and you don't have to worry. But if you're not loaded and you live paycheck to paycheck, or you're trying to better your financial situation, then this is definitely for you. So the number one thing that most people need to do is you need to have 3 to 6 months worth of emergency savings. And I would say forget about 3, focus on 6, you know, especially in times like this. You know, 3 might work good if you're a dual income household that makes a lot of money, and, you know, you can easily save a 3-month nest egg within a month. For example, you know, with a combined income, then it might be okay to operate on a 3-month emergency fund. But say it takes you a year to save 6 months of emergency funds, or more than a year, then you need to be operating on a 6-month emergency fund, because it will put you too far behind if some things come up or a job loss happens or something worse, and you're going to be wishing you had that money. But here's the thing, you don't have to stop at 6 months. If you have a 6-month emergency fund and you want to keep saving, if that extra money helps you sleep at night, by all means, go ahead. Like, that's something that I do. You know, I could stop working today and pay my bills for probably at least a couple of years and not have to worry about it. That's how far ahead of the game I like to be, because that helps me sleep at night. It helps me know that I don't have to worry about what my bills are going to be tomorrow, you know? And one of the main reasons you want to do this, especially going into a depression/recession, is because of the potential of your income to drop or get eliminated altogether through a job loss. Like, for example, during a recession, people are unemployed on average for 6 months. So if you have just a 6-month emergency fund, you can blow through that entirely. And an emergency fund is to just get you through that time, right? Well, what if you have an emergency during the emergency? Right? So that's why it might make more sense to have more than 6 months saved up, just in case something else were to come up. If you have a 6-month emergency fund that's just for paying bills and that's not for anything extra in case something breaks in your house or in case there's some kind of medical emergency, then you're definitely going to want to have more than 6 months. There's all kinds of things that happen that we talk about here on the channel regularly, even when you're not in crisis mode, guys. You might have a refrigerator that goes out, a dishwasher that goes out. Maybe you need, you know, to fix your air conditioner in the middle of summer like this. That stuff costs a lot of money. You guys have written me some of the costs of this stuff, and it is just monumental. You know, for a house, you could be looking at 12 grand to get a new AC unit. It can be very, very expensive. And then guess what? You're faced with having to pile on the credit card debt, you know, get a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, and then start borrowing yourself into oblivion to get out of it, when you could have just saved the money now when times are good and you're making the money. And check this out. 44% of Americans have 3 months or more of expenses put away. And out of that 44%, only 28% can cover 6 months or more of emergency savings, guys. So that's not really that many people that are prepared. It's less than half of people really have money saved up for a serious problem. You know, really only a small fraction are ready for something 6 months or more. And the problem is, I know this is hard, especially if you're already being, rattled by inflation and you already are having a hard time paying the bills you already have. Saving extra might not be a possibility right now. Well, that's when you have to look at finding ways to change your life, guys. If you're in that situation, you need to find maybe a roommate. If you're single, maybe you need to get a second job or a side hustle, like a lot of these people I talk about in my videos that need to do these things in order to improve their life. It's not something you have to do forever, but it might be a temporary sacrifice you need to make for your long-term stability. Now this also affects retired people even more, okay? So if you're retired or you're close to retiring, then you need to have even more cash to cover your expenses. This is so that way you don't have to sell off your 401k or unexpectedly sell a paid off house because all of a sudden life got too expensive. Some financial experts actually recommend that retirees have up to 5 years of expenses saved in cash. That might be a little extreme for some people. I would say at least maybe 1 or 2 years if you're retired. 5 years is a lot, because at least with 1 or 2 years saved in cash, that would definitely give you enough time to figure out what your next move is going to be, because you don't want to be just living off of a cash savings account in retirement in case of an emergency, and then the 5 years is up. Then what are you going to do? And remember, this is in addition to your 401k, this is in addition to your pension, this is in addition to your Social Security benefits. You want to have that 1 or 2 years of savings in cash ready to go in case, maybe the Social Security check stops coming. Who knows what could happen, right? Maybe your pension goes bankrupt. They cut your pension income in half. Those things have happened to people. I have seen this happen to people, guys. I've talked about it here on the channel several times in the past. So you need to be ready for stuff like that, which kind of brings me to the next point, which is that you need to be thinking about what your plan B would be in case you do lose a job, in case you do lose your main stream of income. Well, a lot of people are going to be looking at getting some sort of side hustle or another job. Really, you want to have some sort of side hustle with your job, and that could be anything, because what you don't want is to just have one stream of income. When you only have one stream of income and that goes away, now it puts you in a position where you have nothing and have to scramble. Versus if you have a side hustle going the whole time, then if you do lose your mainstream of income, then you still have something going. A lot of smart people have been doing this way before this recession even came into view, because they recognize that it's the smart way to live. It's the smart thing to have multiple streams of income. And it's not like you have to be some kind of baller and have like 5 or 10 streams of income. Just having 2 or maybe 3 is good. To give you an example what this might look like, let's say you have your job, right? But then you sell items on eBay on the side and you make an extra $300 a month doing that. Okay, that's already 2 sources of income. And then one extra one that you might not be thinking about but does count. Let's say you got $100,000 in a savings account earning 5% a year right now. That's $5,000 a year that $100,000 is earning you without doing anything. So that's a passive form and another stream of income. So somebody in that position has 3 streams of income. And that extra $500 a month that person's making between interest and selling on eBay could make the difference between needing to go into debt or taking out a home equity loan or something like that. Now, obviously, we live in the gig economy where there's lots of different ways to do a side hustle. A lot of people recommend driving Uber or doing Instacart, things like that. I don't think stuff like that is very profitable. You could do it if you want to. The main appeal to doing that is it's easy, right? You can just sign up, and with like 48 hours later, you can be driving Uber or Lyft or, delivering Grubhub, whatever, right? But it's hard to make good money at that stuff. And it's easy for that to go from being a side gig to your full-time gig because you need to do a lot of it to make a decent amount of money. I would recommend finding a side gig or side hustle that makes you decent money but doesn't take you a lot of time and effort to do, and something that might be scalable. Like, for example, I started this YouTube channel as my side hustle when I was doing real estate. And then once I started making enough money from the YouTube channel, I actually flipped it around. Then YouTube became my full-time gig and real estate became my side hustle. But my plan was to get out of real estate altogether. So eventually I just quit doing it, but I still make money from real estate every time somebody purchases a house through my referral link, which I will remind everybody is down below in case you are looking for a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, anywhere in the United States. Feel free to use my link down in the description. It's a free service I offer to you guys. I make a commission from it. It's free for you to use, and a lot of people have written me telling me how helpful it has been, so feel free to use it. But the reason I bring up that example is not just to remind people I have that as an option for them, but to show you that's a very passive way for me to make extra money that I don't have to go out and work for every day, Because that real estate agent doing the transaction is going to give me a small piece of that commission for giving them the client. So you want to find stuff like that you can do that doesn't require a lot of your time, but can still net you a decent amount of money. And listen, guys, the reality is sometimes you have to grow a little bit personally. Sometimes you have to learn new skills. Michael Bordenero. See, those kids over there just asked me about my YouTube channel. Told them to subscribe. Hopefully they'll learn something. Sometimes you have to learn skills, guys. Sometimes you might have to learn how to do something new, and that might be the key to having a good side hustle going on. Like, for example, 54% of Americans say that they have a side hustle today, and it ranges on how much money people make. You'd be surprised how much money people can make, okay? According to a survey from Next Insurance, I don't know why an insurance company did this survey, but anyways, it was across all age groups between 18 and 64 years old. 38% of the respondents said they started a side hustle because of economic conditions, including recession fears and slow wage growth, and the majority, 62% of them, bring in less than $1,000 a month with their extra gigs. But so what? Even if you're bringing in $500 a month, $300 a month, that is better than $0 a month, especially in times like this. But some people make more than that. 15% of people who have a side hustle make between $1,000 and $5,000 a month. 7% make between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, and 15% make more than $10,000 a month. That is very good. I mean, that's more than most people make with their full-time job. That's how people are able to turn their side hustles into their full-time income, is by building it up to that point. And the reality is a lot of people started off doing this because they have to, not because they want to. So I recommend that you start doing it even if you don't have to, just in case you need it in the future. Now, the next thing you can do is, if you have high interest debt, pay it off ASAP. It should have already been paid off. This is something I've talked about a million times here on the channel. People getting out of debt and how bad this is for your financial health. But if you still have any form of high interest debt, you need to get rid of it, guys. And in my opinion, high interest debt right now is probably anything more than a 7% interest rate. That's already high, but anything more than that is definitely high interest debt. So you need to pay that off ASAP. And the thing is, the less debt you have, the more of your income you can now save and invest and prevent yourself from falling into your own personal financial recession. But clearly a lot of people are not listening to this type of advice because credit card debt just hit another all-time high that we talked about recently, and that's at now $1.14 trillion, like it's nothing. It's literally going up by a couple $100 billion per month right now, and no one's even blinking an eye. And you got 9.1% of that debt transitioning into delinquency just recently. So that's almost 10% of it that people can't pay. And a lot of people ask, like, well, if I have this debt and I have an emergency savings, should I use the emergency savings to pay off the debt? Well, I would say it depends. If you have enough emergency savings to actually pay off the debt, you got to look at it like this. Is the interest that your emergency savings throwing off enough to cover the amount of interest you're paying on that loan? Because if it isn't, then you should definitely pay it off, all right? But if it is, and say you come out slightly ahead, then maybe it makes sense to keep the emergency savings while still paying down the debt slowly. But that's something that everybody has to decide for themselves. But definitely pay it off if your savings is not throwing off enough interest to pay off that debt. Now, there is one silver lining to us going into this depression, and that is we could be facing lower interest rates sooner than later. You know, I talked about recently how people are freaking out and wanting this emergency rate cut to come from the Fed yesterday, which luckily they haven't done yet, and maybe they won't do it at all. But eventually we are going to see lower interest rates more likely. And if you do have debt, then you can take that opportunity to refinance some of that debt when the rates go low enough. It's not going to be tomorrow. It probably won't even be next year, guys, but maybe the year after that. The problem is you should already be out of that debt by then. But if for some reason you still have it, then take the opportunity to refinance that car loan, or maybe refinance your mortgage if you can actually get a better rate. Don't do it because you need money. Don't do a cash out refinance. Do it because you're going to save money on your monthly payment. That's the only reason you should refinance anything, by the way. So I want to make that crystal clear. If you're not saving money by refinancing whatever type of debt you have, then it's not worth doing. It's that simple. You need to be lowering your monthly payment. If that's not happening with a refinance, don't do the refinance. In fact, the reason I bring this up also is a couple of different reasons. Because number one, mortgage rates just hit their lowest level in more than a year. Okay, so right now the 30-year mortgage is sitting at around 6.47%. It's still really high, but it has come down quite a bit from its 7% range. But the thing is, if you got a mortgage at 7 or 7.5%, it's probably not going to be worth it to refinance now at 6.47%. And unfortunately, a lot of people are doing this. They're talking about how refinance applications are surging. Well, I'll bet you a lot of those people are doing what's called a cash out refinance and are taking money from the house to pay all these bills that we're talking about here. They're not doing it because it's lowering their monthly payment. They're doing it because their house is earning more of a yearly income than they are. So they're using that money to pay for their life. But eventually that catches up with people, and that's how they lose their homes. And here's the other thing to not fall for, guys. Just because mortgage rates came down doesn't mean you should rush into the housing market and buy. You have to understand that the reason that mortgage rates are coming down is because the jobs market has slowed down tremendously, almost to a standstill. At the same time, all of these lenders are anticipating a Fed rate cut coming very soon in September. So that's why you're seeing the mortgage rates come down, because they're already anticipating the rates coming down from the Federal Reserve. But that's actually a bad thing, because that means our economy is going into this depression that we keep talking about here. So do you really want to be the one on the hook buying into a time when, you know, we're looking at a lot of financial instability? Probably not. But hey, you do whatever you want. Like literally people are rushing in to take this money out of their houses like crazy, guys. You have 42% of recent mortgage applications being for refinances. That's almost half. So that just goes to show you how desperate people are for money, because they don't have the emergency fund. They don't have any money saved for the emergencies that they're facing with their increased cost of living crisis right now. So what do they have to do? They have to borrow money against their house and use that as a piggy bank. Now I want to throw another segment in this video with a few of your comments. Like I said, my wife Lizzie, she's been screenshotting some of your comments, and there's some things that are relevant to things I'm talking about here, and I want to bring them up. So one of them is, when rates drop, are banks going to give out loans like they used to? Even if they do, I would imagine that people wouldn't be able to get as big of a loan as they did back in 2022. What do you think? Well, that is a fantastic question, and what history tells us is that's exactly how it works. When interest rates start to drop, lenders also start scrutinizing who they lend to much more. It's going to be much harder to get a loan if you already have a bunch of other debt and your credit score is not that good. So all these things that I'm telling you to do here in this video, you know, add up to having a good credit score, add up to making sure you have a good debt to income ratio, because you make a lot more money than you owe and a lot more money than your monthly bills are. That's how you end up getting to a point where you can still get a loan when a lot of other people can't. And lenders have already been pulling back on how much and who they're willing to borrow to over the past couple of years, but you can guarantee that they will be tightening up that belt even further once the whole recession becomes official and rates start coming down. This guy goes, "You never talk about medical expenses." Well, actually I do, but maybe you just don't listen or you don't watch all my videos, but I have talked about it before. But anyhow, he goes, "I got a $400 medical bill for a blood draw, $450 for breathing medication, and the medical BS is causing middle-class Americans to lose everything. By the way, pharmaceutical companies made $4.1 trillion last year. I thought globalization would fix things, but they remain a monopoly, no free market for Canada and Germany, and more to compete." So here's where the emergency fund comes in, right? If you have money saved or you have another stream of income besides your Social Security check and your 401k, then you'll probably be able to afford those big medical expenses, even though they suck, and even though you're getting ripped off by these insurance companies, you have no choice but to pay. Otherwise, you're gonna go to collections. They're gonna start putting liens on things that you own. Nobody wants that. So you're kind of forced into paying this stuff, like the mafia, guys. People who follow what I'm saying in this video likely won't be facing these problems to begin with, you know, and when it does come up, they'll be able to afford it, is the idea. And this last one I want to read to you guys to show you just how bad inflation has gotten and just how much the average person's expenses have gone up, which just reinforces why you need to do everything I said in this video. My name is Jeff. I really enjoy your channel. Thank you, Jeff and your wife. They're both retired law enforcement. They live here in California. They did an experiment and kept all their receipts for a year, including eating out, groceries, and incidentals. They did this from November 2022 to November 2023. Our overall increase in the exact same lifestyle purchases came out to a 32% increase. We didn't eat more, didn't increase entertainment. It is absolutely insane. Retirees are really feeling this economy right now. We just received a little over a 2% average cost of living to offset this crazy inflation. It is not working. We can't afford to stay in California and plan to move out by the end of the year. Thank you for what you do and keep it up. Well, you're very welcome, Jeff. I'm sorry to hear this is happening to you and your wife, and obviously California is extremely expensive, probably one of the most expensive states in the country. And I don't blame you for moving out. That's probably one of the best things you can probably do to save your financial future at this point. But that just goes to show you guys, like, can you afford your expenses to go up by 32% right now? Well, they likely already have, and there's a chance it may continue to go up, especially once the Fed starts lowering rates. That's the other thing everybody needs to think about. Them lowering rates, especially prematurely, before inflation has really gone down, that's it. You know, it's gonna be game over. That means inflation will continue to go up more than anybody expected, and it's gonna be a huge problem. You could easily see your cost of living go up another 32% over the next 3 or 4 years if they start cutting rates prematurely, which it looks like they might be doing. So yet again, just another reason of why you need that side gig, guys, why you need to have extra streams of income, why you need to be out of debt, why you need to have extra money saved for emergencies. Like, these are not rocket science ideas. And one bonus one I'll throw in there, if you do have some extra money to save and invest, I highly recommend having some of that in physical gold and silver, you know? Buy a couple ounces of each if you can afford it, because that will preserve the purchasing power of some of that money as the government continues to inflate away the value of the dollar. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.